Welcome to the final video of Greek. Here we're going to wrap it up by looking at the 10 sample words that we saw at the beginning, and we're going to analyze the words, see if we can figure out why they're pronounced the way they are and why they're spelled the way they are. Hopefully we can use all the Greek rules we have learned recently and apply them to these words. So first I'm just going to write all the words out. Okay, so we have Safrosini. I'll just pronounce them again so we can just, remember what the words were. Safrosini, then we had porphyrogenite, then we had samoma, then we had xanthochroi, next was exoclema, then we had omphaloscepsis, then we had chryselephantine, then we had isagogy, then we had arine, and our final word was demos. Okay, now that we have our 10 words, we can go through and see why they're spelled this way, and hopefully we can recognize some of the rules we've been talking about. So let's start with the first word. I'm just going to use a different color and highlight the main points of the word. So the first thing is a lot of these words have a lot of Greek roots, which again I know I've mentioned many times, but they're very, very key to understanding Greek. And I think almost all these words have certain Greek roots. So I'll tell you what the root is before we actually look at the the actual spelling rules, because the roots are the most important here. So we'll take a big, look at the big picture of the roots, and then we can go look inside those roots and see why the roots are spelled the way they are, because they implement the Greek rules. So the first word we have, Safrosini, comes from the Greek root sophros, meaning being sound of mind. That's what it means, being sound of mind. So the root is sophros, meaning sound of mind, and sini is basically a Greek suffix to form abstract nouns. So that's what sini is. So put it together, you've got Safrosini. And the thing I want to highlight here is we have the S at the beginning. Remember I said it's going to be spelled S most of the time. Might be C here, it can't be C because there's an O after. So we know it's going to be an S, so we've got that S. The schwa is the O. Remember, the schwa could really be anything in Greek and any other language, but like I said those roots are going to help you. So if you recognize Safrosini, the root sophros, you know this is going to be an O. Then's our common PH almost all the time for the F sound. R is normal. Again, O is the connecting vowel in Greek, and this is the A sound. Remember, for the A sound, I said most of the time it'll be O, because O is the connecting vowel, and it is here too. Safrosini. So again, the O is the connecting vowel in Greek. Again, we see that S again. It could be a C right here, but it's not, because sini, the root, is the suffix to form abstract nouns, so we still have our S. Y, again, one of the main characteristics of Greek, if you remember, the I sound can be either Y or I. Here it's Y. Remember I said it was a 50-50, sometimes hard to tell, but if you know the root, you can figure it out, and it's normal. And remember I said a lot of Greek words end in the letter E, ending in the long E sound, and it does here too. Safrosini, and this E is a very, very common ending for Greek words. So that's Safrosini. Okay, moving on to word number 2, porphyrogenite. Now the root porphyr means purple. Porphyr means purple. Purple is kind of similar to that word if you look at it. So porphyr is purple. Gen means born or birth. Ite is, an English combining form, like meaning a person or representing a person. So that's kind of the English add-on to this. But again, porphyrogenite. So what does that mean? Like something being born into purple? Well, it's something to do with royalty. Someone born into royalty because, purple is the color of royalty. So what we have here is we have the P is normal. The O represents the O with one dot sound, porphyrogenite. Then we have our PH, always going to be PH for the F sound. Here Y is used for the I sound. Remember, I can be I or Y also, just like the sound I can. So Y here, porphyrogenite, O, we have the connecting vowel O. Again, that's very, very common. Remember, a G is going to be used for the J sound, the J sound, and it is here. E for the S sound, almost all the time. N is normal, and ite is that English ending. But remember, I in Greek can be spelled with an I or a Y, and here it's spelled with an I. But this is really an English add-on. But, for Greek also it can be I or Y, but it's I here because it's English. So that's porphyrogenite. Porphyrogenite. Okay, next word is samoma. Samoma, the Greek root sam or samos means sand. Sand, and oma means tumor. Okay, this means tumor. And this word, the word samoma in the dictionary, its origin says Latin, but the root samos, and the root oma both come from Greek, so they are essentially composed of Greek parts. Okay, so what are we looking at in this word? We have that silent P. Remember the S sound at the beginnings of words, it can be spelled with PS, as in the psychology and pseudonym. Those were examples I used. Here it's PS for the root samos, meaning sand. So if you know that, you know it's a PS at the beginning. A for the A sound, samoma, nothing else really. Samoma, you've got the root O, again connecting vowel, but it's also representing the long O sound. It's really the only way to represent the long O sound. M is normal, and the schwa at the end, which could be anything, is A, because usually the schwa at the ends of words is going to be A, and that's pretty much true of like almost every language, except for German. So we'll look into that later, but again, the schwa is A at the end. Okay, so that's samoma. And now we can move on to word number 4, which is xanthochroi. Xanthochroi. Now this, I like this word because it has two roots that mean the same exact thing. Xanth means yellow, and ochro means yellow as well. So it's yellow. I think the definition's like describing a person with like light skin and fair hair. So that's where the yellow part comes in. Okay, so xanth means yellow, ochro means yellow, but the actual spellings, remember at the beginning, X could represent the Z sound, as in xylophone and xenophobia, words we looked at. Xantho is a common root of Greek, so we have that X there. A is normal for the A sound, N is normal. TH, remember I said TH is going to be how the th sound is going to be spelled in the middle, regardless of if there's a PH or not, so it's going to be TH all the time. O for the A sound, xanthochroi, remember O, it could be O or A, but mostly O, plus we have that root anyway, so that helps us. The K sound, mostly going to be CH, we see that here, xanthochroi. R is normal, the O is used for the schwa, and the long I sound at the end is an I. We really couldn't imagine it being a Y because that would look like xanthochroi, but the I does make sense, xanthochroi, because it's, common Greek ending. So the I represents the I sound in this word. Okay, so that's xanthochroi, and we are moving on to exoklima. The Greek root ek basically comes from like ex, meaning out, and that's what it means. Cycle, probably recognize that from cycle. Basically it means wheel, or cycle, as you can imagine. So exoklima, and ema is like a common ending. So what do we have here? We have the E at the beginning for the S sound, very common, really no other way to spell that. the C is part of this root. This is like a dividing line. This C is part of this C is part of this. So exoklima. So these two C, because really double letters aren't that common in Greek, but this is double because it's from ek and then sikl. So that's, you know, why you see that. But then here, like I said, the C represents the k sound. Remember, it's going to be ch or c. K is usually the pure Greek spelling, and we don't see that often. So usually ch, which is most common, as in xanthochroi, or just C, as in this. And I said the easiest way to figure that out is to look at it by the roots, and cyclo helps us with that, because we know it's just a C. And then E for the long E sound, it's E, so it's going to be spelled with an E. M is normal, and the schwa is A, as in Samoma. So exoklima, exoklima. Okay? Alright, word number 6, omphaloskepsis. Ompho means umbilical, and skepsis comes from Greek skepsis, meaning active viewing. Active viewing. So again, we've got two Greek roots, and for omphalo, we see the O for the ah sound. Again, very, very common, ah. M is normal, we see that PH, that universal PH in Greek, always there. A for the schwa, ompha, A for the schwa. Again, O is the connecting vowel, always the connecting vowel. Plus it's pronounced with the long O, so omphalo, so it's going to be O anyways. And then the skepsis part, well, here the only kind of unusual thing is the K. Remember, K is very rare because it's usually the pure Greek spelling, and skepsis is like a pure Greek root anyways, so we know it's going to be a K because CH wouldn't look right, C doesn't work because there's an E after this, so K is correct because it's the pure Greek root. So that's why we have the K. Remember, this isn't too common in Greek, but it does happen, and this is an example of a word where the K is present for the K sound. Okay, moving on. Our next word is chryselephantine. The roots in this word are chrys, meaning gold. You've probably heard of chrysanthemum. And elephant, which doesn't mean elephant, it really means ivory, but it can also mean elephant. So something that has ivory and gold. Chryselephantine. We have our CH, very common for the K sound. R is normal. Y for the short I sound, I. Again, it can be Y or I. That Y is very common in Greek. S, again, for the S sound. Like this, the number 1 spelling for the S sound, so we have that. And then we have elephantine, so the E is for the S sound almost all the time. And then another E, because elephant. And then PH for the F sound. And then you know the rest. Elephantine, this is a schwa, A for the schwa, NT to finish that out. And again, we have INE, which is a common ending for many words. So chryselephantine, chryselephantine. If you hear "een" or "ein" at the end of a word, it's probably going to be INE most of the time, if not all the time. And this goes for any word. So INE, very common ending, and we have that here. Chrys is a root, elephant is a root, and INE at the end. Very, very common. And then this has a lot of Greek elements to it with those H's, the CH, the PH. So yeah, very common. Okay, next word is isagogy. Isagogy. Is really comes from a Greek root like EI. S, kind of EI, meaning in, so that's where that comes from. Agogy comes from agein, meaning to lead. That's really where, like, agog, words that end in agog come from, like synagogue, because agog means to lead, and here the agogy part, this agog part comes from that, meaning to lead. So we have isagogy, we have the I for the long I sound, which at the beginning, it's going to be I most of the time because it really can't be a Y. The Y wouldn't look right there. So I for the I sound at the beginning. S is normal. Can't be a C here because there's an A. So that would make it ikagogy, and that's not what we want. So it has to be an S. A for, and it could be SC because that's one of the options, but it's not because it's not Latin. It comes from that Greek root iso, so you know it's going to be just an S. A for the schwa here. We've seen A for the schwa a lot so far in Greek. And you know, A is always like a really common letter for the schwa, and that's true for Greek as well. Okay, remember when I said that the G is going to represent the J sound? Here, G also represents the G sound, and I said that wasn't common at all for Greek, and it's really not, but here we have a G representing the G sound for G, and then we have the O, long O, always going to be O, so we have go, and then the second G represents the J sound, the J sound, right here, and then that ending E, that long E sound at the end, spelled with an E. Very common in Greek. It's the first thing we saw in Sophrosine. We see that again in isagogy. So, you know, you see all these vowels, I, A, O, E, and hopefully you can understand how each one represents their own respective sounds, with the A representing the schwa. All the other vowels in this say their own name. They're the long sounds. So I for the I, O for the O, E for the E, A represents the schwa, isagogy. Okay, word number 9. We're almost done here. Airine. Air actually comes from, it's like a stem of the E-M-E-N root, meaning put into something, like M or N. So that's where the ER comes from. Let me make this R better. Okay, so that's where the ER comes from. And Rhin, R-H-I-N, means nose. So you probably knew that one because very common. So ER means to put into, R-H-I-N means nose. That's why you've got that R-R-H. Remember that R-R-H is kind of common in Greek, especially in the middle, and especially for medical terms, which this is. First of all, we have the E for the S sound. It's going to happen all the time. That R-R-H, this could really be separated into what we have here with the CC. This air is part of one root, and the R-H-I-N is part of another. The R and this is part of another root. But we could kind of see this as an R-R-H word, because it's very common, R-R-H. So we have R-R-H here, so I can get rid of this line and sort of put this together. And then again, we have "ine" at the end. Remember that very common ending, you know, just like this, chryselephantine. So airine, I-N-E at the end. Very, very common. Okay, and our final word for Greek is demos. Comes from deme, meaning populace, or people essentially, the common people. Remember, the D is normal. The E is the used for the long E sound, E, which is going to happen most of the time. Especially because you know the root in here anyways, so you know it's going to be an E. N is normal, and the O is representing the ah sound, which it does most of the time. And we know that OS is a common ending for Greek words. It's the equivalent of Latin US at the ends of words. Greek OS is a very common ending. And the S is going to be S at the end because it's part of that ending, and it can't be a C or an SC. That just wouldn't work with this word. It's a very simple word, demos. D-E-M-O-S. And that concludes our 10 sample words of Greek. Hopefully you can see, you know, the spelling rules and spelling patterns we learned in action with these 10 words. And the main thing is hopefully you can see the importance of roots and how they helped us and how they assisted us with all the spelling rules we have learned. Like I said, I know I've mentioned this several times during all the Greek videos, but I just want to stress how important Greek roots are. Same goes for Latin. Latin and Greek roots together make up a whole lot of English, and therefore a whole lot of words in the dictionary. So the best way to learn these two languages and their spelling rules, as we've seen with Greek, is to learn the roots and then use the spelling rules to you know, with that, and the roots will definitely help you. Guaranteed, they will help you in figuring out which letters to use when. Okay, so this is the end of Greek, and hopefully you've learned something new, and thanks for watching.